Welcome in to the Punt and Pass podcast. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside my co-host, Jake Fromm. Be sure to follow us on social media at Punt and Pass on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Drew Butler. He's at From Jake. Puntandpass.com, the number one destination for all things college football. Jake, what an episode we have on deck. It's week 10. It's November. As Brian Kelly famously said a couple of weeks ago after they beat down, who'd they beat? LSU. I forget. He said, October is for pretenders.
Oh,
November
it was Ole Miss. It was
for
Ole
contenders.
Miss.
That's right. Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
October is for pretenders. November is for contenders. We're going to find out a lot this weekend. We got some big games on deck.
TV timeout says the coach who just gets exploited in the college football playoff. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, please back into the episode. Let's go. Let's get started.
Absolutely, man. So glad to have you alongside again. We have a massive episode on deck. Obviously going to get deep into the Georgia-Tennessee game, number 1 versus number 1. We'll get to that, of course. Alabama's playing LSU. We'll get to that. The college football playoff rankings are out. We'll get to that. How's everything going up in Washington, man? You're getting ready for the Vikings this weekend.
Dude, going great. Getting ready for the Vikings. Play at home, which is it's always nice. And anyway, just got done with a Wednesday practice. Coach took it easy on us today in hats. And so, man, it's nice. We're chilling, getting ready, and it's going to beat the Vikings.
Yeah, vibes got to be good. Winning football in the NFL is the best. And you guys are on a 3-game win streak.
Yeah, I tell you, man, winning anywhere, period, is tough, especially in this league. And it's just something you'll take for granted. And the vibes of the building are great. And so you just want to keep stacking wins, as Coach is saying, and keep it rolling.
No doubt. Speaking of stacking wins, we need to get a win on the board for the hashtag DBs freebie this weekend. And I have that dialed in just a little bit. That brings me to our presenting sponsor of this episode of Punt and Pass. Of course, it's Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best daily fantasy game in the industry. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And they've been awesome partners to the Punt and Pass podcast for years. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And if you use the promo code PUNT, you get a 100% deposit match up to your first $100. DB's freebie will be centered in on the Georgia-Tennessee game. I've got it dialed up. We'll get to that later. If you haven't downloaded Prize Picks yet, and if you haven't used the promo code PUNT, what are you waiting on? The time is now. This is sports euphoria. You've got football on for the next 25 straight days. The World Series are currently going on. If you're a soccer fan, Premier League soccer on the weekends. Of course, the NBA is going on, and NFL. There's no place better to get down on the NFL than on Prize Picks. You can do cross-sport entries. You can win 10 times your money in one day, and payouts are instant again. Sign up for Prize Picks now if you haven't already. Tell a friend. Use the promo code PUNT. It is simply the best. Check us out on social media. We'll be posting my plays later on in the week at Punt and Pass, at Prize Picks on social media, Twitter and Instagram. And again, use the promo code PUNT. You get a 100% deposit match up to your first $100. People, that's free money. Prize Picks is the best. Use the promo code PUNT and start playing today. Jake, you were fired up, man. I love, first off, I got to give you mad props. You have embraced the podcast life. You're still doing this while you're on an NFL roster. I, for one, appreciate it. I know our listeners appreciate it because they tell me all the time they're so glad to hear from Jake Fromm. But now you're getting fired up. You're texting me when the college football playoff rankings come out. You're like, dude, I got to get my thoughts in. So first down in our 3 and out, of course, is our reactions to the college football playoff rankings. Number 1, Tennessee. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Georgia. Clemson's 4. Michigan's 5. Alabama is 6. Your initial reaction, sir?
Dude, yeah. So I'm invested in it, man. It gets me riled up, to see stuff, and I see just this bogus they're putting out right here.
Okay, I love it.
About Tennessee being the number 1 team in the country, and Ohio State the number 2 team in the country, and then our great Georgia Bulldogs the number 3 team in the country. And that's just, to me, I was thinking about this example as I was getting on the elevator to come up to my hotel room, my luxurious hotel room that I have to stay here in Washington, D.C.
Love it.
And I was thinking of this example of Tennessee, they're just that new kid at school, and that everybody thinks is the coolest, and they can do everything the best. And only time will tell if that's true.
Okay.
Now they do have the impressive win over Alabama, and then I have the kind of the wins side by side here. UGA has the win over Oregon, which looks better and better every week as that goes on.
And what was the score of that game again?
49-3.
Okay, just double checking.
They ranked Oregon number 8, Alabama number 6. Okay, the disparity there, and Tennessee beat Bama 52-49, obviously in crazy walk-off fashion like they did, and at home. Mm-hmm. Georgia beat Oregon 49-3 in a neutral site. You know, it was in Atlanta, a little bit more of a home field advantage, but wow, I thought that was incredible. Now, the only other win, because I think it's all about wins here in this, and the only other win that comes to mind that Tennessee has is the win versus LSU.
Yeah.
And who the college football playoff put at number 10, which I also think is bogus. I don't think they're really here to stay. They're going to lose this game they have to Alabama. Then they're going to be a 3-loss team. Okay. And the only other 3-loss team in the top 25 that the college football put out was Texas.
Interesting.
And so arguably, where are they going to end up on this whole grand scheme of things here in the ranking? So it's all bogus. It's early. It's not here to stay. It's in the end going to settle itself out.
Of course.
But I just, to me, just the kind of disrespect I felt.
Yeah.
As a Georgia fan to say, okay, hey, we're not 1. You can put us at number 2.
Okay.
But to lose
I agree.
But to lose it to Ohio State, who the only win they can boast about is Penn State. And Penn State hasn't really beaten anybody. They had that win at Auburn, and then everything else has just been okay. But that's the only team Ohio State beat. And arguably, and they were kind of in a dogfight in that game. And then speaking of Ohio State, they were in a dogfight week 1 when Georgia played its best game in week 1 to Notre Dame. So I just think it's kind of Bush League. And then Clemson number 4. I don't really like that one. I don't think Clemson's very good this year, but it will settle all itself out when it comes to the games this Saturday.
Man, I love it. Jake Fromm
Sorry,
just coming out firing, which I, for one, greatly appreciate. Let me ask you a few questions.
Talk to me. Sorry.
I keep hearing the comparisons of this Tennessee team to the 2019 LSU team, a team that you played against.
Yeah.
So please, as you now sit with the experience that you have watching this Tennessee team and with the experience that you have having played against Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and that unbelievable LSU team, please tell me the differences, because I keep hearing these talking heads in the media make the comparison, of which I believe they might not have any idea. You, sir, have the best idea. Any meat on that bone?
I mean, I think there's a little meat on that bone, but there ain't that kind of meat on that bone. I mean, those guys, LSU, the swagger and the confidence, those guys, when they walked out onto the field, I mean, they knew they were the stuff. They knew they were the guys, and nobody could touch their stuff. I mean, one, obviously, phenomenal players up and down that field, and what kind of their offense was just so insanely good. Obviously had Joey B and had JJ and Jamar Chase and all those guys. What phenomenal football players, and it showed in the NFL draft where those guys went. Jamar Chase took a year off and still was a top 5 pick.
Rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year.
Unbelievable.
And well deserving. But I think their defense doesn't get as much love as it should have, because they did have
LSU's defense.
LSU's defense, because I mean they had a couple bad games where they let up a bunch of points, but just because they could just chill out because they knew the offense had their back and nobody was going to stop it, and the coaching staff too. And I don't know. I think there's a little bit you can make the argument there, but I don't really think that it's. I think the 2019 LSU football team is arguably the best college football team that's ever
you could easily make that argument. There's no question about it. And I've said it a million times. Looking back on Georgia's loss, the team that you were the quarterback for in that SEC championship game, losing 37-10, you're like, hey, that actually wasn't that bad in the grand scheme of things. The perspective that you have after what they did to Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl, it was like 50-0 at halftime.
It's ridiculous.
And then they run through the national championship game and just tear apart Clemson. That team was for real. And they were much more, I believe, complete than what Tennessee was. That's not taking anything away from Tennessee. I think it's an unfair comparison to the Volunteers. Now, I thought Tennessee would be ranked number one. I did. You started hearing people talk about it after the game, and they completely dismantled Kentucky. Kentucky was the top 20 team. I thought, hey, you know what? Resumes, if you want to say what the committee says, we don't take into account what happened a year ago into this year's rankings. I was like, yes, I think that's correct. I think Tennessee will be ranked number one, and they were. Jake, you have your hand raised. Did you want to add something there?
Okay, everyone wants to make a big fuss about this win over Kentucky at home. Okay,
I agree.
Who beat Kentucky not too long ago? South Carolina did, 24-10. And who beat South Carolina on the road 48-7 in dismantling fashion?
And it was 48-0. Like South Carolina scored very late.
It was a shutout. It was a shutout the whole way through. So just throwing it out there.
I can say with confidence that no fan base loves to be disrespected more than Georgia fans. And that will play a big factor into the atmosphere this weekend heading into the game.
Which I think is also kind of good too in a sense of way. Like it just gives us something else to be pissed off about going into the game. It gives Kirby something else just to beat into their heads every day at practice, because I know it ticks him off too now.
Yeah,
I know it does. It gets him going. I know
it's disrespectful.
I know when it came out. One, he was like, "Man, that pisses me off," but then also two, it's like, "Oh, this is actually kind of great."
Motivator.
I can just use it in my own psychological motivating fashion and fuel the guys any way I see fit.
So he will utilize that per your experience to talk to the team and say, guys, you're the defending national champions. You're 8-0. You've kicked ass up and down outside of really one game. I mean, Kent State, take that for what it's worth. Missouri, everybody's holding that dark cloud over Georgia's head. You do think that Kirby will use that as a motivator leading into this game?
Speaking of the dogfight at Missouri,
okay, here we go. I love it. Man, I love this.
Let's give our dogs some grace here. All right, the number one team in the country also found themselves in a dogfight versus Pitt, that they had to go to overtime to win that football game.
Correct.
So, I mean, anyway, but Kirby now, he may not explicitly say, hey, they don't, but he'll beat around the bush at it where you guys aren't as good as you think you are and you have to prove it, yada, yada, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So,
of course.
He is fantastic at psychological motivation.
There's no doubt about it. And that's been proven. I think that both head coaches leading into that show, they probably knew where they would be. I doubt Kirby thought they'd be 3, but I guarantee you Heupel, there's a little piece in the back of his brain saying, man, it'd be great if we weren't number one. And I guarantee you Kirby was saying the same thing. Man, it'd be great if we weren't number one, because that bullseye on your back just grows. It just grows. I tweeted out last week, somebody please sell me on how Ohio State could be ranked ahead of Georgia and Tennessee. And of course, the College Football Playoff Committee tried to do that. That is a complete joke. I do not think Ohio State should be ranked ahead of Tennessee or Georgia. Why? For the reasons you just said. Ohio State beat Notre Dame in a dogfight in week 1. Notre Dame lost to Marshall. If you want to bring the transitive property into this entire thing, which of course the College Football Playoff Committee tries to do, we can take you up and down the street and whoop you around with facts that would say you are wrong. Heather Dinich on ESPN, who I have a love-hate relationship with, because I love that she is like the de facto college football playoff expert, and I hate her takes. I think her takes are awful. She's everywhere, so good for her. I'll give her a lot of credit. Respectfully, what she said about Georgia when the rankings were released could just not be more false. She said, it's clear now, right, after Georgia was 3 and Tennessee is 1, it's clear now that Georgia must beat Tennessee like a non-starter. If Georgia loses this weekend, they're out of the college football playoff. And the reason she said that is because Georgia is quote unquote, or actually real quote, air quote, clinging on to their victory against Oregon, clinging on to a 46-point beatdown of a top 10 team that is probably the odds-on favorite to win the Pac-12 at the moment. That right there is crazy, because if you're going to tell me that Georgia, it's being held against them, that they played Oregon in week 1, which was 8 weeks ago, and they beat them and scored 7 touchdowns on their first 7 drives, that would be held against them in a rankings perspective is crazy. It leads me to say this ultimately. The college football playoff rankings are an entertainment show. It's getting us talking. It riles up the fan base. It makes for great fodder. There's no doubt about it. I believe the committee is made up of 13 people. If you wanted to look at the resumes of those people when they create these rankings, you'd scratch your head. You'd be like, are you for real? These are the people who are choosing the teams that belong in these top rankings. I go out west to a place called Las Vegas. When you're looking at actual handicappers with data, with analytics, who break down these teams week in and week out. Now, let me just say one thing. Last week, those sharps in Las Vegas, the handicappers, said Georgia was 22 to 22 and a half to 23 points better than Florida. What was the final score?
Insane.
Georgia 42, Florida 20. Okay. This week, they're saying Georgia is 8 to 8.5 to 9 points better than Tennessee. That is from data. That is from analytics. So they're telling you Georgia's a better football team. Now, when you play the game, all those things are thrown out. But the fact of the matter is this: the people who actually know what the hell they're talking about from a handicapping perspective have Georgia as more than a touchdown better than Tennessee. Those inside that locked door in Grapevine, Texas, at the College Football Playoff Committee will create the rankings to generate conversation, to get people talking, which is what they have accomplished. The beauty of it all, though, Jake, which you just mentioned, is that it really doesn't matter because these two teams are playing this weekend. Heather Dinish, we might need to get her on the podcast. I would love to have a discussion with her and say, where do you come up with this stuff? What allows you to go on the college football playoff ranking show and say, Georgia's desperate this weekend. They really need to win. Okay. They're clinging on to their, give me a break. The Clemson at 4 ahead of Michigan was a head scratcher. Michigan's non-conference schedule is the worst in the nation. Yep. Bama being at 6 just kind of feels a little bit dirty. And look, Bama, you want to talk about name recognition, Jake? If you play Bama and beat them, they will put you on a pedestal as they did with Tennessee. Yep. But Bama, scraped by A&M, trash. Bama, scraped by Texas. They're a top-ranked, 3-loss team? Whew. I don't know, but it accomplished their goal. It has us talking, and it will all be settled on the field. It's going to be an awesome atmosphere this weekend.
I wish we had something to pull from here, and just the question of when was the last time a top 3 matchup, a top 2 matchup, and one team, the lesser ranked team, was an 8-point favorite over the number 1 team in the country.
You know, it is wild. And another thing that jumped out to me, and I think we might have mentioned this on Monday's podcast, the total for this game, the over-under is 66 points. I would have to imagine that's the highest total in Kirby Smart's tenure at Georgia through 6.5, almost 7 years, right? 66 points is an astronomical total in college football. Kirby's defenses have been really, really good. I would probably look back and see what that number was in the 2019 SEC championship game against LSU. But that just goes to show you that they think Tennessee will score points on Georgia. I probably have to look at the team total. I'll go look at that. But if you think 38-30, so I'll get that in here in just a second. It's really interesting. It's going to be, let me just say this because we're going to get to the game breakdown here in just a little bit. It will be an awesome game. It will be an awesome game. It will be an unreal atmosphere. And I think any Georgia fan would say, man, I am so happy that this game is at home in Athens. And any Tennessee fans got to be sitting there going, dang, we would be loving if this game was in Neyland.
Yeah, I mean, just I love the culmination of factors coming together here. We're lower ranked, so we have a little kind of underdog mentality going into it. We have this game at home as well. And then arguably, I hate to even say this and even throw this out there. But I also think the team that loses this game controls their own destiny as well. And if
I would
they
agree with that.
and if
I would
they
agree with
blow
that.
and if they blow everybody out afterwards and after this game, it's just going to be a crazy argument to how can you not put them in there at the end. So it's
I
going
would
it's
totally
going
agree.
it's going to put those guys, those 13 guys or whatever, who don't know what they're talking about, in a really tough situation when they leave out 11-1 Tennessee team who beat Alabama and had 2 top 10 wins against a crappy LSU team. And yeah, I just it's gonna be tough.
I could not agree more. It's going to be an awesome, awesome matchup. Let's go to second down. First down was
Talk
a
to
little
me.
bit long-winded, but for good reason. 2 quick ones in second down. One, Nolan Smith out for the season. Huge
That's
bummer.
tough.
A little bit of a gut punch to Georgia earlier in the week. Tore his pec. Jake, for guys like you and I, our pecs are not probably big enough to tear.
No.
I would imagine that hurts very bad. He's going to have surgery. First things first, you just feel awful for the guy.
Yeah.
He did not go to the NFL. He came back for his senior year, now dealing with the injury. Hopefully he gets healthy enough for his combine and pre-draft process. But the reports that I've heard is he's still very active with the team. He's become even more of a vocal leader. So he will be there to cheer these guys on, but that's your top pass rusher in 2022 so far. Somebody's going to have to step up big time in his spot.
For sure. Big opportunity and a big need to step up. Man, I really hate it for Nolan. Nolan's an awesome guy, an awesome dude, and good teammate. His presence is just known in the building. You hear his voice. Guy loves to talk a lot, loves to talk a lot of smack. He's great at just egging people on and getting going, and really getting the best out of people too. So they're going to miss him a lot. It's going to be a great opportunity for just guys to step up, honestly,
Yeah.
In a big time need in a really big time situation.
There's no doubt about that. So, who does step up? We'll get to that in third down. We're going to go over our impact players and possibly some X factors, but Nolan get healthy. I think everybody in Dog Nation is rooting for him to just stay a part of this team, which of course he will, and help those guys elevate their game in his absence. The second part of second down, any updates from you on the Auburn head coaching search? Deion's getting a lot of love. I thought Lane Kiffin did a great job. He was asked in his SEC weekly teleconference about the Auburn vacancy, and Lane said, look, I deal with this stuff every single year. Every coach pretty much does. When an opportunity comes up, you're always going to look around. Lane said, we've got really good things happening at Ole Miss. I've got no intentions to go anywhere. And then he goes on to say, they should hire Deion Sanders. He just said it. He goes, they should hire Deion. Deion would be an unbelievable name. He would bring a lot of juice to the program. They would automatically vault them into that kind of elite recruiting tier. I'm hearing Bill O'Brien a little bit. I'm just really interested to see where Auburn goes, because clearly the splashy hires Deion. Do you think Auburn would pull an assistant from Alabama to be the head coach on the Plains?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, one, I think if it wasn't somebody other than Bill O'Brien, I mean, Bill O'Brien has a record other than being an assistant coach at Alabama. I mean, his own resume speaks for himself, with the Patriots, at Penn State, and he's just done a lot of football and been a little bit everywhere. So I think you could look past being the assistant at Alabama, and I say all that to say that I think they could get past it, but I don't know. I still I don't know. I hadn't really gotten much feedback from Tyler lately, and so I really don't know what direction they go. I think it just has to be a big move, and I don't know if the big move is Deion. I don't know who the next tier down big move would be, but I think it has to be big and a full time commitment from the donors and from the head folks over there at Auburn.
Imagine Deion taking the Auburn head coaching job. Those Aflac commercials with him and Nick Saban would look a little bit different.
They would.
That's definitely the kind of front runner name in the public eye. We'll see where Auburn steers their coaching search. But Bill O'Brien, of course, like you said, very proven at each of his stops as a head coach. If he wanted to get back in the mix, Auburn would be a great spot, especially with his knowledge of the Alabama factory that is the Crimson Tide. All right, let's go to third down. This one will be a little bit long-winded as well, but it leads us into really breaking down this gigantic matchup between number 1 Tennessee and number 3 Georgia in the college football playoff rankings. Of course, it's number 1 Georgia and number 2 Tennessee in the AP poll. But Jake, I want 2 impact players, okay? And I want 1 X factor. Each of us will give 2 impact players each of us will give one X factor. So obviously your X factor is somebody that's off the radar that could come up in a big spot, make a big play, do something that could tilt the outcome of the game. And then your impact players, hell, it could be Stetson and Hendon Hooker, because odds are those two guys will be who decides who wins this football game. Start with you. You can go one. I'll go one. You go one. I'll go one. And then we'll let our X factors out.
All right. I don't know. We can kind of play a few here. I know.
Okay,
I
yeah, do your thing.
I know
Do your
you have
thing.
it all structured.
You're on fire today. Do your thing.
I got a lot of things rolling. I think for Georgia too, I think it comes down to set. I think it comes down to the scheme, the game plan to get Brock Bowers involved. I just think the offense is at its best when it's flowing through Brock, and then put Stetson in just easy situations, easy completions. Don't try to make him think too much. Just let Stetson do. Take the thinking out of it, because this is going to be a shootout. It's going to be a lot of plays. Just get Stetson to do. I think Stetson needs to have a big football game. Brock needs to come up and just give his best stuff. I think kind of the X factor here is just the offensive line in general. I think Amarius Mims, he went down. Who's stepping up for him? And I think this game's going to come down a lot to the trenches and winning the trenches battle, being physical, being tough, and we're going to need to move bodies late in the game when we have a lead and keep that lead and just eat this time off the clock to Tennessee can't have the football.
You are 100% correct. So let's track that down again. Stetson Bennett. I believe the next one was the offensive line is the X factor. Is that correct?
Yeah, Stet needs to have a big game. Brock needs to have a big game. Those are the impact players.
I love it.
From my perspective,
it's a 5-star game.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, a quarterback. I'm gonna have to pick the quarterback. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And then I just think the way they scheme it and the way they do it, the offense is best when it's run through Brock. It's the most explosive when it runs through Brock. And the X factor in this, if the offensive line plays to the level I think they're capable of playing and winning in the trenches, it's going to be really good news for the Dogs.
Okay, so you've been in these situations before. You have prepared for games like this. Going into your meetings throughout the week and talking with your offensive coordinator and your head coach and being in practice, what makes the quarterback, put yourself in Stetson's shoes, feel the best heading into Sanford on Saturday afternoon?
A crisp, clean game plan with definitive rules, decisions. There's not take the gray area out. Oh, if he does this, he does that. No. Hey, we're starting here. Eyes go here. Ball goes here versus this. Bang, 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 and then good practice. When we have good practice, things are great. For me, psychologically, it just feels like I'm ahead and on top of my game. So those are the things that I needed, was just a clear game plan. Do this or do that based on what I'm seeing, and then let me just take care of the rest or rip it.
Awesome. Love that. And there's no doubt that Todd Monken and Buster and the entire offensive staff are creating a game plan for this offense to go out there and play fast. And probably play very physical, because I think that will be a telling factor of who wins this football game. I'll give you my two impact players.
Please do.
Number one, Keely Ringo. Keely, this is where you make your money, right? Everybody's been talking about him, highly recruited. He's done a ton of good things at Georgia. That is very clear. He's a legend. Now is when you cement yourself as a first-round draft pick. Now is when you have NFL scouts say, we have to take this guy. I would love to get your thoughts on what you think Kirby and this defensive staff will do with him, with receivers like Jalen Hyatt, who could be in the Heisman conversation, and Cedric Tillman, who's coming back from injury. I would think, just based on my experience in big games, more so at the NFL level, you look at your top tier DBs and say, you're on this guy. We'll scheme around it, right? Put Keely on Jalen Hyatt, put him up and press coverage on the line, get this guy off his feet, right? Knock him around, and then go run with them. Do not give him a free go. I said this to you on Monday night. I would not be shocked if Tennessee scores a touchdown in this game with somebody running wide ass open down the field. It's what Josh Heupel does. Watch the games. They do it every single game. It will silence the crowd. Georgia will have to bounce back in a big way. Number one impact player, Keely Ringo. Got to have a big game. This is where you make your money and lock down a guy like Jalen Hyatt. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, no, I love that take. I think that's great. It's a huge challenge to Keely. Be like, hey, dude, this is your
Go
money
get it.
game.
Yeah, dude.
If you want the quote unquote bag, this is your
Absolutely.
bag game. I mean, this is it. Every NFL scout, coach, anybody who has anything to do with drafting somebody is going to turn on this game and they're going to watch what Keely Ringo did versus Tennessee and Hendon Hooker.
All right, my number 2 impact player, Jamon Dumas Johnson. He is the leader of this defense. From a communication standpoint, Tennessee is going to throw everything at you. This guy's going to have to be on his P's and Q's. He is going to have to be able to tell that front four where to be, to look back into the back end and say, this is what we have. He has got to have a great game, getting the play calls in, getting everybody situated, pre-snap, reacting to the motions that Tennessee's going to throw at them. I'm going defense because I think that is the key here. Tennessee averages almost 50 points a game. Georgia allows only 10. What gives? I think it's those big plays. I think it's a guy like Jamon who's going to step up there, make sure everybody has their assignments, and then it's time to go execute. And my X factor. Are you ready?
Talk to me.
Chaz Chambliss. Okay. I think Chaz has got to step
up. I love Chaz. I love Chaz now.
Yeah. He's got to get after Hendon Hooker. Sack, fumble, right? Affect him. Big hit. Just be disruptive in the pocket. Hendon Hooker is an absolute stud. 25 total touchdowns, 1 interception. Think about this. Stetson Bennett is 25 years old. He turned 25 last week. How old are you, Jake?
24.
Okay, thank you. I'm 33. Stetson's 25. Hendon Hooker turns 25 in a couple of weeks. These are some old-ass QBs. God bless them. They are bad.
My third in the league.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if I could do it over again, you bet your ass I would still be in college at the age of 25. So God bless these two guys. Tons of experience. They're going to be even keel. You have to have somebody who can affect them. So from a Georgia perspective, my 2 impact players, 1, Keely Ringo, 2, Jamon Dumas Johnson, 3, Chaz Chambliss. Chaz, step up. No one's out. Somebody has got to make a big play on the defense, steal a possession. And then my other X factor, Branson Robinson. Late in the game, start feeding that run game, eat up the clock, play keep away. This is what your typical make their ass quit Georgia type ball game will be if they were to take care of business. Quickly, though, we've got to give Tennessee a little bit of love. I mean, these guys are absolutely on fire. Their X factor is going to be their secondary, shown to be vulnerable in the prior games. They've allowed a lot of points in specific matchups. So that's going to be big. And look, if you allow Hendon Hooker and these wide receivers to do what they've done, we'll get to this in the breakdown of the game. Could be a long day for Georgia. Like, this game could go either way, Jake.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Tennessee's secondary, and you know how I said how I love to have a good week of practice. It can't be good for Tennessee secondary at all during practice. Just constantly just getting torched in practice by Tennessee's offense. So maybe their self-esteem is a little over there. Hopefully on that the back half of the defense there. And Stetson has a really big game. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for him to go head to head. The points will definitely need to be scored. And I think over 30 points is going to be needed in this one for sure.
All right. Good deal. Good deal. Before we get to our prize picks and I give you the DB's freebie, we got a couple of questions here from Twitter and our audience. So first question, Jake's from Jason Simonovich. Shout out Jason, Peachtree Ridge, a former teammate of mine in high school. Great listener, so we appreciate him listening. He says Georgia is last or near last in the SEC in sacks. Nolan Smith's already out. Can Georgia still generate a pass rush on Hooker? Will it even be a major factor? Your thoughts, Jake?
See, everybody always brings that up, and I think because every team knows it scheme-wise going into the game, how good Georgia's defensive front is, they didn't really have an opportunity to really rush the quarterback. And so I don't really get really big and carried away with that stat because I don't think those guys get a super great opportunity to rush the passer. And also too with the front and the way the defense is and the way they scheme it up, it's not really great for those pass rushing lanes. So I don't get really too carried away with that. But I definitely think there'll be an opportunity to rush the passer a lot in this game. And we'll see if they can answer the bell.
And it starts with the back end. Lock the guys up, have Stetson have to look around, then go get him. It's tough to get a quarterback when there's somebody running wide open and he can get rid of the ball in less than 3 seconds. Okay. It makes me think of the SEC championship game a year ago. Georgia's defense was unbelievable, obviously historically great. They were playing basketball, Alabama was. I mean, Bryce Young was catching it, throwing it immediately. They did not give Georgia's front seven even an opportunity to make an impact in that football game. Next question from Brandon Gallia. Brandon, shout out. Thanks for listening. Which team will have more total yards on offense? Predict both QBs' total interceptions. He thinks one each. He thinks Hooker early as we take the lead, Georgia, Stet late as Tennessee tries to come back but runs out of time. Brandon, that would be fun. Total offense, Jake, who do you think has more? And then do you think there will be some interceptions in this game?
I mean, I definitely think there'll be a turnover or two. I wouldn't be surprised with the interceptions there. I think Hooker throws one. I could totally see that. I'm wishful thinking here that Stetson learns from this past Florida game and doesn't throw some interceptions. And then he also got away with a few there in that Florida game as well. So hopefully he kind of learns from that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Stetson threw one, but I definitely think this game will come down to the turnover battle and that turnover margin. And that's going to be in games like this. It's going to be huge.
It's the deciding factor.
It's going to be huge.
Yes. You can come to Punt and Pass every single week, and I will sit here and tell you turnovers will be the deciding factor. And guess what? I guarantee you Kirby Smart and Josh Heupel are telling their teams the same exact thing. Last question. We just answered it. Nick Watson. Shout out, Nick. Thanks for listening. Who's your X factors? We just gave them to you. The offensive line. And then I think Chaz Chambliss or Branson Robinson. So there you go. All right, let's get into the hashtag DB's freebie. It's going to hit this weekend. Such a big game. I will not be there. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but it's for the betterment of the University of Georgia. I told you, when I don't go to big games, they oftentimes win. But if you haven't downloaded Prize Picks yet, you have to download the app. Download the Prize Picks app. Go to prizepicks.com if you want to go that route. Use the promo code PUNT. It is $100 match up to your first $100. It's free money. You can put in the hashtag DB's freebie, and you can make this Saturday even sweeter than it's already going to be. Again, promo code PUNT. Jake, Hendon Hooker, over under 285.5 passing yards. I'll just say he's going to go over. That number seems a little bit low. I guarantee you that number is going to go up because everybody's going to think Tennessee's going to score a lot of points. Get in now. 285.5 passing yards over. Hendon Hooker can toss it around. I think Georgia will limit the run game for Tennessee, force Tennessee to throw, right? And I think just over 60 minutes, Hooker goes over 285.5 passing yards. Stetson Bennett, rushing yards, 11.5. Now, listen, I gave out Stetson over 13.5 last week for whatever reason. There was a clear game plan to not have Stetson run the football. That will change this week. I'm going over Stetson, 11.5 rushing yards. I think things might break down a little bit. He's going to have to be a little bit more creative in those moments where he has to make a play. He can scamper outside, move the chains. That will be in this game. 21-0 early against Florida. I sat there and I go, he ain't running the ball. I'm screwed.
Yeah. I tell you, I like that one a lot because I think his instincts are to scramble around and play some high school football on you. So I like that one a lot.
All right. Brock Bowers, 70.5 receiving yards. I'm going to go under. I think Tennessee is going to be so Zoom focused on not letting Brock Bowers be effective in this game. Look at what he did against Florida. Now, granted, he was covered up a lot of those times and just made plays. That's how good he is.
Insane.
Stetson cannot force the ball to Brock Bowers because that's when he can get into trouble. I guarantee you Todd Monken is telling him if Brock ain't open or if he can't make a play, do not throw it into trouble. So I'm going to go under Brock Bowers, 70.5 receiving yards, and I'm giving you out one more, okay? This is a 4-pick hashtag DB's freebie. Please flex it because 3 of them guaranteed will hit. We're all going to be winners on Saturday evening. Ladd McConkey, over 54.5 receiving yards. Like I just said, Tennessee is going to be Zoom focused on Brock Bowers. That will open up opportunities for others in the pass game. Expect Ladd to have a big game. He's elevated his game in the past couple of weeks after somewhat of a slump mid-season after those amazing games against South Carolina and Oregon. So there you have it. Hendon Hooker, over 285.5 passing yards. Stetson Bennett, over 11.5 rushing yards. Brock Bowers, under 70.5 receiving yards. Ladd McConkey, over 54.5 receiving yards. There you have it. That's the hashtag DB's freebie.
It's good stuff.
Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code PUNT, 100% deposit match up to your first $100. All right, let's break down these games very, very, very quickly. First game, Florida at Texas A&M. An ugly matchup here. Florida is reeling big time. Texas A&M is a dumpster fire. This game's at noon on ESPN. Who do you think wins, Jake?
I kind of like Texas A&M in this one. Honestly, I do.
Okay.
I think Florida on the road is going to be tough. Obviously, they have some kind of fuel in the fire. They just got kind of schwacked by the Dogs last weekend, so they'll be running and gunning. But I think Texas A&M needs to win this one more.
Texas A&M needs to win this one more. I would totally agree with you. The line here is A&M favored by 3.5 points. The total is 55.5 points. Florida needs a big, big win, man. I'm going to roll with Florida. I know everybody in Aggie land was excited. I forget the quarterback's name. He's the quarterback of the future. He had a good game a week ago, relatively speaking. But I think Florida's a little bit more hungry. It's an early kick. Road teams often are a little bit more focused on these early kicks. So I'll ride with Florida. It's an ugly pick. I'll take the 3.5 points on the road. Number 6, Alabama at number 10, LSU. You mentioned this game a little bit earlier. Who's going to win this one?
Roll Tide.
Yeah, you think big?
Yeah, I think they finally say, hey, look, I know we had our missteps early in the season, but we're for real. Don't flex on us. I think there's a little bit of pissed off in that building too that they're ranked number 6.
I would agree with that. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, they lost to the number 1 team by 3 points, 17 penalties, a lot of turnovers,
all on the road.
I know. I know. I'm going to take LSU plus the 13.5. I think Alabama wins. LSU, their offense has really picked up the pace. Brian Kelly has those guys believing. Death Valley at night. This atmosphere is going to be live. It's at 7 p.m. on ESPN. Alabama's shown to have trouble with mobile quarterbacks in the past. Jaden Daniels is playing at a very high level right now. And again, Alabama has just been this conundrum of who are they? Like, there's no consistency. Can they find it? Both of these teams are coming off a bye. I think the atmosphere plays a big, big difference here. I think Alabama wins. I'll take the 13.5 with LSU. Auburn at Mississippi State. 7:30 p.m. ESPN2 in Starkville. Again, 2 teams. Cadillac Williams is now the interim head coach at Auburn. That's pretty cool. Mike Leach needs a win in the biggest way. You think your brother and the Tigers can go to Starkville and get a win? Man. This is always interesting, though, because those interim coaches, man, it's like, are the guys going to step up and play? Yeah.
Sometimes they bring some juice. However, I wish they would, but my gut's telling me Mississippi State's going to win this one at home, 7:30. I think Leach will have a good plan. I just don't know what's going on at Auburn. I don't think they have a great idea of what they're doing offensively. So I don't think they can really score to keep up with Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think Auburn's biggest problem right now is they lack discipline. And if you lack discipline against a Mike Leach-led offense, that can cause a lot of troubles. Mississippi State's a big 13-point favorite. I'll lay the 13 here at home. Cowbells, big rivalry game. Take Mississippi State. Number 4, Clemson, who you said earlier you're not the biggest fan of, is heading up to South Bend to take on Notre Dame, 7:30 p.m. NBC. What do you think there? Clemson with a lot of quarterback questions. DJU probably going to start. Caleb Klubnik coming off the bench and like getting them out of jams. Dabo is showing he's not worried to take a QB out and make a change.
That's what I mean. How many times does this kid have to come off the bench and save the day before he's the starter? I mean, come on, give it to him. Let's go, dude. All right. I'm switching it up. Notre Dame, baby.
Really?
They show up in a big game.
Wow.
Nobody's giving them a chance.
Wow.
They can't do this. They can't do that. And then Clemson has shown they're beatable in multiple games this year. And I think they'll have to go to the backup quarterback, but the magic just won't be there. It'll be too big. And he didn't get the reps in practice because they're trying to save DJU and his feelings. Notre Dame wins.
All right. Jake going with the home team, the Fighting Irish in South Bend. I'm going to lay the 3.5 with Clemson. I think Clemson's more familiar in this spot. Obviously, they know now what they need to do to jockey for college football playoff positioning. Big, big game for Notre Dame. Big, big game for Marcus Freeman. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be able to run the ball effectively against that Clemson front. Might be a long night if they have to put the game to Drew Pine's hands. So I will roll with Clemson and lay the 3.5.
My
All
boy
right.
Drew, my boy Drew Pine has a big game, baby.
Do
You
you know
watch.
Drew Pine or no?
I don't know him personally. My brother threw with him one time. We
Oh, cool.
get trained by the same QB country guy.
There you
So
go.
he says a lot of great things to say about Drew. So I hope he has a big game.
All right.
And last thing I'll say about the Alabama LSU game, LSU when they played Ole Miss, if you watch some of the big plays, schematically Ole Miss had the plan. Their guys just didn't make the tackle. There was a squeeze on the zone
Yeah.
read. There was a scraping backer for the quarterback. Jaden Daniels
Made plays.
just made plays, and Alabama has to me better linebackers, and so they'll be able to make those plays. Faster linebackers, a little more savvy. I don't think he'll be able to do the same thing. So that's why just doubling down on my Alabama pick.
Love it. Love that. All right. That leads us into the game of the week. We've kept you here long enough. It's time to talk about who is going to win. It's number 1 Tennessee taking on number 3 Georgia. Between the hedges, SEC on CBS, 3:30 p.m. kick. Jake, break it down for me. And first, I have to mention Jake Fromm's career record against Tennessee was 3-0. You outscored the Vols 122 to 26. You and the Georgia Bulldogs. So props to you. Famously, in the locker room after one of those victories, you sang Rocky Top after you spoke with the media. I have to ask you, was that because you think Rocky Top is a good song? Please answer.
Rocky Top is a pretty decent song. Gets overplayed, and so what had happened was Kirby loves to play the fight song, whatever theme song for whatever team we played. If we're going on the road, because they play it all the time, it's loud, it's obnoxious, and so it's just a way to get crowd noise kind of in for practice.
Yeah.
And Rocky Top played just endlessly on repeat
all week long.
If anybody knows me, they know when I get a song stuck in my head, man, I blurt it out, I sing it top of my lungs, and so I get done with the interview, and it just I heard it the whole game. It's in my head, and so just sing it. And I think the Dogs will be singing good old Rocky Top at the end of this one.
All right.
Dogs win. It's going to be. It ain't like we're going to
go. Give me a score prediction. Give me a score prediction.
Yeah, it ain't like we're going to go take care of business.
Yeah,
we're going to take care of business. You know, it ain't going to be a 48-7. We're beating South Carolina, but it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be 4 quarters. I think we win by 2 scores.
Wow.
I mean, the line's 8, so I mean that's not a super outrageous claim there. I think it's by 9-10 points, somewhere in that range. You know, like a 38 to 30 to 28, something like that. But it's going to be a dogfight. Got to win the turnover battle and got to win the trenches and eliminate big plays with Tennessee's offense.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. Like, it's as simple as that. This is not rocket science, people. I can promise you that.
Yeah, the old bend, don't break defense. Just keep them in front. And sometimes guys and teams like that, they'll get frustrated of just taking the check down. They get frustrated. Oh, I got to hit our big play because that's what we do. We just hit big plays. Just give them the 5, 6, 8 yard completion. Just give it to them. Let them go 80 yards every single time. Because sooner or later they'll get frustrated. They'll throw an interception. They'll try to force the ball. I can talk about this all night. Go ahead.
We can, and you're 100% right. Like you said it earlier, Tennessee is the shiny new object, and for good reason. They got a flashy offense. They're scoring 50 points a game. Hendon Hooker's leading the Heisman race. Jalen Hyatt's scoring these crazy touchdowns. He had 6 catches and 5 touchdowns against Alabama. I'm looking up some tweets right now. One's from Dennis Leviticus. I don't even know who this guy is. I just found this tweet. Tennessee beat 4-loss Pitt in overtime by 7. Tennessee beat 4-loss Florida by 5 points. Yeah, they beat Bama. But Bama's beat 2 unranked teams by a total of 5 points. He's asking, how is Tennessee ranked number 1? He's a big Ohio State fan. John Tweet Sports, who's a great follow on Twitter, at John Tweet Sports, a Georgia fan. He says Missouri is 13th in total defense versus FBS teams. Tennessee's defense is ranked 72nd against FBS teams. Tennessee, I believe, is 132 in the nation or 123rd in the nation in penalties. That will be a huge factor with Georgia's home crowd making a big impact in this football game. Keep in mind, people, Georgia's offense is averaging 41.8 points per game. Like, they're not some pedestrian offense, right? They're held to such a high standard. Tennessee's defense has shown to be vulnerable against offenses like that. Alabama scored 49 points against Tennessee with 17 penalties. Do you know how hard that is to do? Like, that is almost impossible to do. Now, granted, Tennessee scored 52 against that defense. I know. I think Georgia's defense is better than Alabama's defense. I'll say this as well. I think the comparisons of this matchup potentially being more like the 2021 SEC championship game in which Georgia got smoked by Alabama are more accurate than what Tennessee and how they can be compared to 2019 LSU. The reason being is this. Tennessee, with their offensive game plan, could easily go in there and say, we're not going to let Georgia's front seven get after us, dink and dunk, try to get some guys behind the secondary, make some big chunk plays, and get up to a big lead. I think we could all agree Georgia's offense, granted they are scoring 42 points a game almost, is probably not built to come back from a 17-point deficit. You, Jake, did that in the Rose Bowl. A lot of things have to happen in the right way. This game will come down to turnovers. This game will come down to penalties. This game will come down to third down conversions. Like, that's what happens. If you win first and second down against Tennessee, you will be in a much better position to win this game. Everybody and their mother will be on Tennessee plus 8.5. Everybody. They will be the most public underdog this entire week. The public's going to go, how in the hell is the number one ranked team who's scoring all these points an 8.5-point underdog? That's a gift. That's crazy. Look, I've been doing this long enough to know that when everybody's looking one way, you take the other route. I'm laying the 8.5 with Georgia for no other reason than that. Yes, I do think Georgia wins. I think it'll be a phenomenal game. I think they cover. I really do. How they cover, it don't matter, right? If Hendon Hooker throws a pick or it's a sack fumble late and Georgia runs it in for a touchdown, the clock's dead, and they win by 9, guess who wins? I do, okay? And you lose because you took Tennessee plus 8.5. That's just what I think is going to happen.
Tennessee plus.
No. I'm talking about the listener, right? The people who are watching us on YouTube right now. You will lose.
Don't you wish that evil upon me, Ricky Bobby?
No, I would never. But I think it's going to be an unbelievable game. My score prediction, if the total's 66, Georgia wins by, let's just call it 10.
37-27.
I like that. I know
that doesn't add up to 66. Okay.
No, but I think that's right. That's about right where it could pass. 37-27 Georgia, a late field goal by Pod, right? 34-27 late, kick a field goal, make a stop, you win by 10. Like, that will be what this game ends up being. I don't think either team's going to run away with it. I can't wait to see and hear what the atmosphere is like. I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I wish we would know.
I know. I wish we would know. Well, man, I appreciate your breakdown. You brought the heat today, brother. You're fired up. You're ready to go. You guys are at home this weekend, so you'll do your Saturday walkthrough. I believe your wife will be with you. You guys going to go watch the game somewhere? What's the plan?
Yeah, we'll have to figure it out. May hop at a friend's house and watch the game. Grab a few teammates. And it'll be fun.
Any Vols up on the Commanders? Any Tennessee guys?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to double check the roster real quick. But nobody's come to me this week wanting that smoke. So I don't think so. Yeah.
They don't want the smoke. They do not want the smoke. We want all the smoke. Follow us on social media at Punt and Pass on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Drew Butler. He's at From Jake, puntandpass.com. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code PUNT, P-U-N-T, PUNT. You get a 100% deposit match up to your first $100. Cross-board entries. You can win 10x your money. Payouts are instant. It is the best daily fantasy game in the world. If you have downloaded it already, tell a friend. Use the promo code PUNT. Prize Picks is the best. DB's freebie coming out tomorrow. Get on it immediately. Tweet at us. Let us know what you're doing for the game. We appreciate everybody listening, and we will talk to you on Monday. See ya.
Yep.